I would welcome everybody here. Call this Parks Board meeting of March 26, 2018 to order. I guess the first thing we need to do, we got some citizen comments. Jeff, I don't want to butcher the last name. Yes, and as Austin, are y'all coming together? Or y'all separate, or whichever one? Okay, why don't y'all come to the podium right there. And on citizens' comments tonight, we will have 5 minutes, limited to 5 minutes. Okay. If you'll punch the button right there when I turn mine off and state your name.
I'm Austin Sams, and today I'd like to push for the property at 105 Linden Drive. I've noticed that the property is not exactly under any use to the city of Hendersonville, and around Nashville there's a lot of us racing drone pilots that are looking for somewhere safe to go. I'd like to turn that property into an Academy of Model Aeronautics field so that we can get out there and have a controlled environment where no public are walking out while we're inside of our racing goggles and not being able to see anybody else that's around. Yes, we could go out to other Academy of Model Aeronautics fields like the one at Saunders Ferry Park, but it seems that almost every single time that we're down there, somebody's out in the field playing frisbee golf or playing with their dogs, playing soccer or something. It's not controlled out there. We can't exactly set up racing gates while we're down there because airplanes need somewhere to land and take off and everything. And a lot of those old timers in the model aeronautics, they don't like new drones. So I guess just having some sort of permission to be able to fly at the 105 Linden Drive property and moving forward with the Academy of Model Aeronautics is what I'm going for today.
You want to speak?
I don't know.
Okay. Let's go in and back up just a second. The property at Linden Ave was close to houses down there. The 2010 flood wiped out everything. Corps of Engineers has leased that land, given it back to the city for park usage because it can't be built on. Houses can't be built on it again. Structures can't be built on it. One of the things that we have tried to do when I was here before I retired 2 years ago is that we looked at flag football, we looked at soccer, we looked at football, the Titan football program, lacrosse, rugby. We took 2, 3, 4 of the people that have other sports going on and to put them down there to practice. We didn't have any takers. Nobody wanted to go down there and use it. Nobody wanted to utilize that 6, 8, 10 acres down there. Use some parking. We could have put some portalets down there. We could have cut a field. It's big enough for a lacrosse or soccer field. The leagues opted not to go down there to use that for practice. They said it was too far away from everything else, and so on and so forth. So 2 years ago, we just left it alone. With that being said, he's right. There's not anything going on Linden Ave at this point in time. A couple questions that we may have would be the usage of that facility and/or property through the Corps of Engineers or U.S. Army now that they have given us that property. Okay, I don't know if that's a potential use. Again, drones is kind of new to the circuit here as far as what we're used to having in the park. So we would be able to have to check with them. I don't know as far as the neighbors' flight patterns, the bypass, some things like that are down there. I don't know what kind of restrictions that we'd have down there with that. So, and there's an ordinance in the city with drones being in the city without permit. Now, I don't know where we get that permit. We have to go to the city attorney and/or the board of men aldermen with that. So we got a couple of hoops to jump through. I'm not against it. It's something that's on the horizon for us and some other people, but I don't know at this point, Mr. Chairman, kind of where we are. So I don't know. Maybe I get those questions answered with my staff and things. Dallas, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
No, can you talk about the insurance? I know when we met, you mentioned you had insurance, so I thought that would be interesting for everyone to hear about that.
Yes, sir. So the Academy of Model Aeronautics, of course, if we were to get the field, anybody who flies at the field, we would force them to have a membership with this company. It's a company based out of Muncie, Indiana, and they provide us with insurance of $2.5 million to cover us for any property and personal injury that may occur from a model aircraft accident, as long as it occurs on their fields. So that's why we would have to have it as a AMA field, so that we would always be covered by their insurance. And you were speaking of having to get the field set up for soccer and all that. The way that we work is like we wouldn't want anything changed. All the trees there are perfect. The grass, like nothing would have to be changed at all. So there wouldn't be any extra man effort, I guess, from the city of Hendersonville to make the field operable for us. If just looking into the future, if this were to pass, of course we'd like to provide our own personal power off of solar powered energy, so that we're not having to pull anything from Hendersonville again. We'd have our own shelter and stuff with the solar power on top of it. And you were speaking of the flight paths. The flight paths in this area would not contradict with us, because when we're racing, we're typically this high off of the ground, and we're never more than 50, 60 feet. And within this area, as long as you're under 200 feet, anything goes.
I guess I'm not opposed to it. I'm kind of in the middle as far as, and our staff has talked about this, just because of what restrictions we might have from the Corps of Engineers. Again, nobody else in the sports arena that we have wants to utilize at this point in time. It's vacant property that's down there, he's right, and so I'm not opposed to using it for another area of recreation. The shelter, we'd have to get the Corps of Engineer approval. And when we talked about putting some soccer, lacrosse, rugby down there, we talked about putting a portalette down there at the end of the street on our property, so they would have some facilities use, so we wouldn't have any complaints from the neighbors as far as what was going on down there as far as the restroom facilities. And so there is parking down there toward the end. There are driveways down there that used to be go to the houses that were down there, so there's some gravel area down there you could park on. We'd have to put some restrictions on there. So I guess what I'd like for the board to do maybe is table it or defer it until we find out these answers and we can get back with him. I don't know how the board feels about this other request either.
I don't know how the rest of y'all feel, and y'all, I think that, although I know you want a decision tonight, I understand that. I don't think that we can make that decision as a Parks Board tonight. I think that what it needs to be done is for you to come back to Dave and them so they can get the questions answered they need to be answered, and then come back, instead of through a citizen's comment, come back to us on the agenda, where that's where we can make a vote on yes or no. So I think we got a little bit, I'm not opposed to it. I think it's a great idea. It is the property you're talking about down there close to JP2 in those houses right there. I myself am not opposed to it. I think it could be a good use for that, since nobody else really wants it. But there again, I think we have to have it. He has to have those questions answered first, and then we'll come back as far as getting on the agenda, and then I think we can discuss it more.
Yeah.
And,
I think one of the things that he requested to get on the agenda, it was already past the deadline, and
Okay.
we've already sent the agenda out, so we told him to come in citizens' comments, approach the board, and then we could kind of take it from there. So I asked him to go through the correct channels, so he's doing that.
does anybody else have anything?
You know, when we ask the comments, or Dave and them look into the legalities and stuff and all that, you know, maybe you approach the neighbors as well to make sure that they don't have an issue with drones being flown around in their neighborhood. And personally, I don't see a problem with it. If it's property we have and we're not doing nothing with it, it needs to be utilized in some form.
I don't think it would be anything that close to a school zone, but, okay.
You call the office, I think we have your phone number. Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it. We'll be back in touch.
The next person, Christy Goodwin. There again, if you would state your name, and we will be 5 minutes tonight.
Okay. Hi, my name's Christy Goodwin, 118 Ashland Point. I meant to be better prepared, but then life happened in the last couple of weeks. I called originally with some questions about the parks regarding soccer. We've lived here 18 years, and I guess about 15 of those we've been playing some kind of soccer. My daughter plays with Tennessee United Soccer Club, and she'll be entering high school this coming season. We've been playing outside of the Hendersonville area for 2 years now, and life in Nashville and Murfreesboro is a little different than in Hendersonville. The issues that I wanted to have discussed or ask questions about when I just called into Dave's office was about access when the parks are closed year-round. Seeing that we have rain-out dates a lot at Drakes Creek Park. My daughter's on a team that happens to practice at JP2, and I was asked why did I care because my daughter's team was being serviced. And for lack of a better way of putting it, that's just not how we roll. We kind of are worried about all of the kids that either play Hendersonville Soccer Club or with Tennessee United Soccer. Called around, and I guess we have about 2,000 kids playing between Hendersonville Soccer Club and Tennessee United. TSSA, which is over Tennessee United Soccer, and TSC Soccer, they're at 44,000 kids in the state. With MLS coming, my daughter just went to a game this weekend, and that's 18,000 people went out to support that. So that's just kind of the background and why I think it's important to know what's going on with our soccer fields when they're shut down a lot and drainage issues at Drakes Creek. I happened to be out at Sanders Ferry one day and noticed that there is a space that used to be the inline hockey, and it is no longer used for that. Do y'all know what I'm talking about? And I was also just wondering, there's not any goals for anybody to go shoot on just year-round. I understand it's a lot of money to keep Drakes Creek Park open, and you don't want people on those fields when you're trying to maintain that. But with the soccer community growing, sometimes people just need a place to go out and play. So I was wondering how that space might be utilized more like the volleyball courts are that the public uses on Main Street. Some type of soccer situation that doesn't need to be irrigated. Maybe there's some goals, an 11 by 11 kind of field situated out there. So that was one issue I had. I also was asking questions about Tennessee United Soccer and the money that they bring into the community. I had the numbers given to me on the economic impact, and I think it read about at least, we do 2 tournaments a year. The fall usually brings in over $1 million in economic impact to the community. So in the food chain of events going on in the town on different activities and things that y'all have planned, I wondered where we sat in that, in developing turf fields, year-round spaces, and things like that. When kids get into high school and they play for their club, we played until December 3rd. girls usually start going to college ID showcases Thanksgiving on through the winter. And when they don't have a space to prepare, that becomes an issue. That would be for girls and boys alike. So I don't know if y'all can answer any of those questions tonight on what might be being planned for the future. If even in the meantime, before a major turf field might be built, I keep hearing rumor of that, if you might consider even just opening up some type of green space that's not scheduled or used by Hendersonville Soccer or Tennessee United Soccer, that just the community could utilize as a family without lights. Just they could go out on an afternoon and play soccer. Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure that this is a citizen's comment thing, so you were able to say, speak what you needed to speak. I'm not sure that we can answer any of those questions tonight as far as from a board standpoint, but I think if and I don't know, Dave may correct me if I say this, but that also needs to be something that's brought up to your two soccer, the United and the rec in there as far as their boards go, and some of their rules that they said. I mean, they need to be involved in that, answering some of those questions from a field standpoint, from a field usage standpoint, because yes.
I was told that, that back and forth, that those questions had to be asked to y'all because y'all own the park and that we just, lease space from y'all? Is that correct? The field space is leased or rented,
There's
basically?
not a lease agreement, but there's an agreement with practice times and game times, and the staff approves and liaison, like as far as the field times and the spaces and things like that. So basically, the soccer is the only, Tennessee United and the soccer rec league, the only two that use the soccer fields, and we approve their schedules, and they got to work them out together. So I know there's been some controversy between the rec and the United about practice times and number of fields and things like this, but there's only so many fields to utilize for so many kids, and we try to accommodate those spaces accordingly. So, but to answer one of your questions, Christie, there's the field, Memorial Park Field is open year round. That field stays open when we have the shutdown in the summertime for 6 or 8 weeks. I do know that the staff accommodates practice times on that field over there behind the tennis courts for travel teams or lacrosse or whoever needs it during the summertime. So we try to accommodate that. The other question you had was Saunders Ferry. Being a passive park, the Corps of Engineers doesn't want us or to schedule any athletic practice times or things like that. Now, if a family or a group goes down there and just picks up a game and practices, that has nothing to do with us. But we can't organize or schedule 3 teams down there to practice and so on. So that's kind of where we are at this point in time. Probably, I think the chairperson is right that kind of need to go backtrack a little bit, Christie, and get with the Tennessee United and or the rec board and kind of address these things with them and go from there.
But my question really was at Sanders Ferry Park, not for a scheduled, for
Right.
a team type.
Right.
That was just more of a suggestion for Hendersonville itself.
Right.
To have a space, because you roll up everything at Drakes Creek Park and you don't leave a goal out unless you're a high school student that has access to your high school. No one has a goal unless you can afford the money to put one in your yard. That was just like my suggestion to the city
Right.
that has a lot of soccer going on to do that.
Right.
But y'all build the parks. Tennessee United and Hendersonville Soccer doesn't build parks. So my question really was, do y'all have anything in the future that you're planning to do as far as extending any parks or any turf fields or any such thing like that? I don't think that's Tennessee United or Hendersonville
Well,
Soccer.
we have got plans to build more soccer facilities, and we also, in the discussion with our staff and the soccer leagues about some turf. And so that discussion is ongoing, and that it keeps coming to the forefront more and more because The turf fields will provide year-round practice and schedule things, and so I think that's something that's on the horizon a little quicker than we had anticipated. So I think that's a discussion that we're going to have sooner than later. It's kind of a combination because, go and turn your mic on. Because when we,
Took me a minute to turn it on.
it'll be a, no, you're on. One more time, there you go.
You want mine on?
There you
Okay.
go. So when we, a lot of times when we build a facility like that, we'll include the rec, the United, the city, school system, and try to pool all of our resources, money-wise, to build a turf field. So that's in the discussion stage right now of how much it costs, where we're going to put it, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of in the discussion stages now.
Right. And will that be made public at any time, or is
Yeah,
that?
when we find out where we're going with it and how much it's going to cost, where we're going to put it,
I
absolutely.
guess that's really what my question is. You have something in the plans, we just don't know when or how long that will be.
That's correct, because it's more of a financial, monetary issue at this point in
Right.
time. We've got fields in the park that we could turf right now. If we had the money right now, we got a couple ideas in the park we could turf.
And how much does that cost?
The only thing we have to go on is the baseball field that we turfed 2 years ago was about $250,000 for the baseball field, and square footage wise, maybe a little bit more than that for soccer. So we're probably looking at about $300,000 for one field.
Right. I'd heard about, I don't know, in Knoxville, it was about $500,000
Yeah, so
to do that, yeah.
It's
Okay.
quite a bit of money for one field. So anyway, that's where we are, Mayor. Thank you.
All right,
All right.
well, thank you. Hope
Thank
that
you.
answers some of your questions, and going forward, maybe we can get this in the
I
works.
guess yes, I'm still unclear as to how to get the questions answered, but I guess I'll just keep calling everyone. Thank you.
All right, I guess we need an approval of the minutes. Do I have all right, Randy, Mr. Campbell first, and do I have a second? Mr. Roy second? All right. Old business, volunteer park phase 2.
Brief update on that. We're going to, we've been to the Public Works Committee, we've been to capital projects last week. We were going to finance tomorrow, but in the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, but they have canceled meeting because of spring break. We're going to the Finance Committee meeting April the 10th, and then it will be on the board agenda since we've already been to 2 previous committees. And so the money, the difference in the money to build a concession stand that was short, $350,000, is on the agenda to be approved at that time. A resolution is on the table to transfer the money from another capital project at this point in time until that one, other capital project begins. They're going to slide that money from one capital project to the other, which is state funding and state approval, and it's all above board. And what happens when one capital project's in front of another one, and one of them has been sitting on the table for 5 years, and so there's money in the city to do that. So the good news is we're going to hopefully get that approved. The reason why it's kind of time sensitive is because April 10th, it was the vote for the Finance Committee and the Board of Mayor and Aldermen. April 16th is the target date for the company, Dowdell Construction, who was low bidder. We had a 60-day window, and the 60-day window is up April 16th to either approve or deny their contract or bid. And so hopefully by April 11th, we'll have that approval, and we'll move on and get the contract signed through the city and the mayor and the city attorney and get those things moving. So
All right, Mary's Magical Playground.
moving on. That's a great project. They are moving on. Those ladies are phenomenal. There's a couple pictures here I'll send down there. I took this morning. They started last week. The playground equipment came in on 3 tractor-trailer trucks. It's on site. They have already started installing it. They expect about a 4 to 5 week install for the playground. We have a meeting tomorrow with all of the staff members, our staff, their staff, and the architects and everybody tomorrow just to make sure everybody's on the same page. You have playground installation, you have turf installation, you have poured in place, you have concrete. We have all kinds of factors going on here. But it's moving along, and had a little snag in the swing coming from Australia, Keith. We have a swing, a special one-of-a-kind swing coming from Australia. It's in customs in San Diego, we think. We don't know sure, but it'll be here when the time comes, and Carol Ernst is heading that up, and I'm sure she'll get it taken care of. So, but everything's going great. It's if you want to take a ride down there and take a look at it sometime, it's really a sight to behold, and those ladies, and that whole program has worked really, really hard, so.
It's gonna be, I don't know if any of y'all have seen it, you can see it from the bypass, really, it's gonna be really visible from the bypass, and it looks really nice. Does anybody want to comment on it, or?
Yeah, it's a fabulous project. Out of curiosity, can you tell me what makes it a one-of-a-kind swing?
One of the things that they started out, I'll get to the answer when I tell the whole thing, PA. They started out with about 4,000 or 5,000 square feet of playground, and it kind of grew and grew. Now it's 15,000 square feet, so it's tripled in size what they expected to be. It's going to end up being over $1 million with the playground. Special needs, complete special needs, accessible to every piece of equipment on the site. It's going to be really one of a kind in the southeast. The swing that they're getting from Australia is a special swing that you'll be able to put an entire wheelchair, an adult or kid in a wheelchair, into the swing, and that whole apparatus will swing the child, adult, and in the wheelchair and everything, motorized. It's really kind of a neat thing. I think it's only one in the United States, isn't it, Keith? Yeah, right now, as far as we understand it from Carol, this is the first one that's been shipped to the United States, and it'll be in use, so it'll be one of a kind. And like I say, the poured-in-place playground apparatus and the turf will be completely accessible to every wheelchair and everything. It'll be pet-friendly for service dogs. It's going to be a one-of-a-kind deal. It's going to be really exciting to see if that thing comes to fruition. Thank you.
Quick question. Is there an annual cost to maintain that? And if so, is that going to be privately funded, or is that going to be a parks project?
Steve, I'm speaking from maintenance guys here, but the good thing about this particular playground is that with the turf and the poured in place and the concrete and the steel and everything, it'll be pretty much maintenance free, other than the trash and emptying the trash and keeping it clean and things like that. It'll be pretty much maintenance free, and that's the way they designed it, so it wouldn't have any sand or mulch and stuff like that to replace and to wash out and things like that. So the good thing about it is, Darren, is it's going to be 99% maintenance free. Of course, there'll be light bulbs that go out, and there'll be some vandalism, I'm sure, at some point in time. They've already had some vandalism down there, but those type of things. But the majority of it will be maintenance free.
Okay. Inline hockey update.
I'm going to pass that, Stephen, if you don't mind, Stephen, kind of tell them where we've been with the hockey, and it's done. I've got a picture of it, too. Today's picture day. Go ahead.
Yeah, the hockey it's done. They're up and going, already playing. The surface was put down. When they got started, it probably took, I think, 3 days to put the surface. So once it started, it went pretty quick. But I think we're waiting on 2 small pieces to be ordered to go up under a gate when they took all the fencing down. Of course, we got one of the light floods we get sometimes and wash some of our material away, but out of all that flood, we only missed like 2 or 3 pieces, which was really good. But we should be getting those here within the next week, and it's, like I say, they're up and playing right now.
Any comments or questions, sir?
One thing, Mr. Chairman, one of the things that the hockey skaters have said, the kids and the adults and the people, that the surface is really good. It's a lot tighter and smaller grooves and things like that than the original flooring was, and they are really excited about it. One of the things that we're going to do, and if you notice where the Mayor's Magical Place is, just on the other side of the hockey rinks, behind 2 of the goals, the kids shooting the pucks could go over that netting. Our staff right here, Keith and Dallas and Stephen, are looking at getting some poles and some 20-foot netting and putting behind this so that the pucks will hit that netting behind the goal and not go into the special needs playground. And so we want to make sure that doesn't become a problem.
All right. Tennessee Honey Festival. State your name, please.
Sarah and Heather, U.S. Pest Protection. So since the last meeting, I talked to Dave and Keith, and we talked about having the admission be complimentary, be free, and we're going to charge a vendor fee. So we're also going to ask for suggested donations, and these will be distributed to organizations and initiatives that are raising awareness of the importance of ensuring bee health worldwide. So, for example, the Tennessee Honey Bee Association and the Tennessee Beekeepers Association. So that's just a couple examples of people that we would distribute the funds to. Also, within the last month, I spoke with Officer Jamie Owens of the Hendersonville Police Department, and he said he would help me coordinate the security and the traffic control for that. And then I also spoke with Principal Bob Cotter at Hendersonville High School, and he said he would allow us to use their parking lot on the day of. And also U.S. Bank, the branch manager there, Jennifer Perry, she said that we could also use their parking lot.
Well, I'm impressed you did do your homework.
Thank you.
That's good. It's really good.
Thank you.
Dave, do you have any other issues? Are we good? Do y'all feel we're good with this?
We've been in contact with Sarah, with Sarah, and we've blocked off the shelter over there, anticipating hopefully y'all would do that. So schedule-wise, we should be fine. Again, it is just Saturday, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we weren't going to do anything Friday night or Sunday. We just stick straight with Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we should be fine with that Saturday.
All right, with that being said, and she's done her homework, so I'm looking for a motion. I got a motion, I got a second. Mr. Franks first, Mr. Head second. All in favor, signal by saying, any discussion?
I just, one thing I'll bring up, depending on how many vendors you had, I think she was sort of asking last time, being a first-time event, for possibly, the rule is right now, it's $100 a vendor per event. So she was asking sort of last time if y'all could give her a discount being the first year and part of it, whatever y'all want to discuss that or not discuss, that's up to you all, but we had discussed it a little bit, Sarah and I, about the $100 fee. If you had 15, 20 vendors per event, that would be.
All right, do you know how many vendors you're gonna have?
Right now, I have around 25 to 30, but I know we'll get a lot more.
So we've really been waiting on approval before we can really just
Start
set a lot of stuff out
advertising,
there.
yeah.
All right. All right, well, we'll do that motion first. A motion to cut the fee in half. Do I have a first? All right, second? All right, signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, so we've cut that in half to 50.
Yay, thank you.
All right, so now the motion's back on and we're gonna do
Thank you.
this. All right, we've got a motion, Mr. Franks, Mr. Head second, signify by saying aye. Aye. Congratulations.
Thank you. We're excited.
Honey Festival.
New business, HSC soccer camp. You can state your name and give us your,
Helena Upchurch, Secretary for Hendersonville Soccer Club. We are wanting to offer a camp to our patrons. We currently have roughly 1,000 families that are enrolled this season. We average between 1,000 to 1,200 families every season. Every year we are approached to see if we would offer a camp, and in years past, we have not been in a position to be able to facilitate those requests. This year, that has actually changed, and so we are wanting to offer the camp. Our first choice would be to do it June 4th through June 8th with 2 time options. The first would be from 9 to noon, and the second would be from 4 to 7. We were trying, because it's our first year, we want to facilitate roughly 120 players. We are working with another organization that's actually going to help us plan and do all the logistical work. Since both Todd and myself are unfamiliar with doing a camp, we asked someone else to kind of partner with us. And those are dates that work for them as well. We also looked to make sure that there wasn't going to be any conflicts with Tennessee United, CPS, or any of the local high schools that would be offering camps at that time. So that first week of June 4th through June 8th does not conflict with anyone.
all right. Dave, Keith, have they talked to y'all about this at all?
Yes, they have. Yeah, I talked to Todd last week about it. I mean, as far as the dates, these dates would be perfect if we're going to do this. It's our last week of fields being opened, and then the following week is the Tennessee United's camp, and then the 3v3. So there's really not a whole lot going on that week. So if we're going to do it, that would be a good time to do it.
Any discussion? Any questions for her? All right. Do I have a motion to have Mr. Head as first? Do I have a second? Second. All right, Mr. Bowles, second. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we passed. Just make sure you work everything through them and get it all, everything that, you know, all your ducks in a row there. All right, thank you. All right, staff reports, recreational supervisor, Ms. Hamlin.
Ms. Hamlin wasn't able to make it. I've got a few notes for her, if you don't mind, I'd like to just to read a couple things so the public will know about them. I think you should have a copy there at your table also. We had the spring fling last Thursday. A lot of happy Easter bunny rabbits running around City Hall with prizes and candy. The summer employees who worked last year in the summer camp programs, she's working on getting in contact with those people back and taking applications until Monday the 9th at the Parks Department. We're getting ready for the Summer Funtastic and Kids Clubs. This year we're looking at, I think, location looks like Merle Hyde School. They're doing some renovations, I think most people know at Witten, part of it. And I think that's about it for her.
All right, maintenance supervisor, Mr. Russell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We now have a playground at Volunteer Park at Arrowhead. This was a playground that was originally at Veterans Park where Mary's Magical is going now. So we had that playground taken down, taken to Volunteer, and the park staff graded the ground, put the border back, and the surfacing, and it is now good to go for the upcoming season. We've completed all of our spraying of the sports turf fields by putting down pre-emergent and broadleaf weed killer, and I've been working on getting quotes for fertilizer, which we'll be doing here in the next week or two. And our stadium seat project is now complete at the high school field at Field 3 at Drakes Creek. And this project was all done by city employees, meaning park staff and public works staff. And it really turned out nice. Big upgrade to that field.
Thank you, Mr. Russell. Any questions for Mr. Russell? All right. Mr. Long, park manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The adult volleyball season finished up in early March. Adult basketball season for winter finished up in early March as well. The Babe Ruth 13 to 15-year-old league, they'll begin practice the first week of April. We have 2 teams for that league. They'll practice through the month of April, and then they'll begin games through May and June with other local cities teams, White House and Nashville, and some teams from those areas. 710 baseball, those practices are ongoing, and they'll begin their games starting April 2nd. Middle school baseball league, they're ongoing as well, and they began games last week. 710 flag football, they're in full swing with games, and Hendersonville Soccer Club and Tennessee United, they're both full swing with practices and games. Tennessee United began their games March 3rd, and Hendersonville Soccer Club began their games March 17th. We just opened up today the registrations for the Summer Men's Adult Basketball League, and that will take those registrations through April 23rd. And then lastly, spring tennis lessons, registrations ongoing. They started March 13th, and that will go through April 30th.
Just a quick question. Who's running the tennis program now over there?
Brandon Jones, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Long. Is there any questions for Mr. Long? All right. Moving right along. Mr. Bruce, please, Assistant Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The adult softball spring is ongoing for sign-ups. This is the last week for those. Kickball, we've got another week of sign-ups for that. Ken Henson asked me about the kickball, so we are still going on. Hopefully he does find a team this spring to play on. That's what we're hoping for. The seniors men's softball, they're doing a little practice evaluations. I don't know if Mr. Pike made the cut or not for the senior men division. They start April the 9th that week and start games. Lacrosse is ongoing, been going on for about a month now. The hockey, we talked about the new surface. That part, they've started some practices and start games real soon. Not going to practice a whole lot just because they lost a couple of weeks at the front end of it. But they should be big things. I expect those numbers to increase, their sign-ups and so forth, especially in the fall, now that the new surface is there. Fast pitch is practicing now. They should be games after spring break because Sumner County been on spring break this week. For the special events, you got the list there. The March the 10th was the beach day, play day. They got in, we moved some stuff to Friday, and they played Friday and Saturday, got everything in. The Hendersonville tournament the week after, the 14th to 17th, they got, I think, just about everything in also. The 17th and 18th, and this past weekend, the 23rd and 24th, we've had some major rain issues. Got a lot of games played, but kudos to our maintenance staff for getting a lot of stuff played, excuse me, the last 2 weekends. That's about as bad as I've seen it Saturday afternoon, okay? So we played through some rain, played through some weather issues, got a lot of stuff played that most people wouldn't have played other places of the state. So did a real good job on that on Saturday afternoon. Also like to thank Hendersonville High School, the baseball club. They actually gave our lunch to our maintenance guys and the public works guys after the baseball seating project. So I'd like to thank Mr. Gilley and Ms. Tucker for that part of it. And also like to thank the principal of Mr. Hyde School, Merle Hyde School, the principal over there, for letting us use that facility. Seems like a pretty good guy over there. So thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bruce. Are there any questions for Mr. Bruce? All right. We'll move on to the Parks Director, Interim Parks Director, Mr. David Marr.
Thank you, sir. Mayor, glad to have you here. Thank you very much for being here. And the mayor's been very supportive through this transition. I will say that. The major tasks he's asked me to do, the hockey, it's 99% done. Mayor's Magical Place under construction. We're rolling along with that. I did turn my budget in finally a week late, but need to get the budget into Ron and the mayor. So the budget is in their hands at this point in time. If you have any suggestions or comments, I'll kind of send you a draft as we get closer to the workshop and things like that. We're interviewing for the special event person. Going good. To some aspects, it's taken a little longer than we had anticipated as far as the interviews and the selection process, but we're working on that, Keith and Dallas and I. The pay plan for the employees, we're working on that at this point. They're all doing surveys to turn into HR this week. That plan is underway. Concession stand project, of course, I reported on is going well. Hopefully move forward with that and get things going over there at Volunteer Park. We did have a break-in. I don't know if Steve mentioned a break-in. We had a break-in this past week at one of the buildings and stole several pieces of equipment. So we did a police report. We're going to file it with the insurance because it's going to be over $1,000. It's several pieces of equipment, i.e. weed eaters, chainsaws, blowers, and things like that stack up quite quickly. And again, one of the things that the mayor and I discussed on my interim position was that the staff take up the slack on all the day-to-day stuff and the paperwork and the POs and just whatever happens during the day-to-day stuff. These guys have done a good job, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate the board's support through this time. And they have launched the directors' applications. They went out on the street either Thursday or Friday, I think. MTAS is going to be involved in this along with our HR. And I think the application process closes May 9th, and then they'll proceed from there. So I will keep the board updated when that's going on and all the other projects and things like that. But been a good 4 weeks. Hadn't been part-time, Mayor, but it's been a good 4 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamar. Is there any questions, comments?
I've got a quick question. Dave, thanks to BOMA, I think the Parks Department is about to receive 35 acres on the Beatty Farm, and then an expected another 38 acres, I believe, for a passive farm. Can you just give us a brief update? Has there been anything, or just kind of an idea of the timeline of what people might expect? I don't think we're ready to go out there and start hiking on that property just yet, but kind of what's the idea there?
No, I think it's several years down the road, and one of the questions they asked me in the Board of Alderman meeting about the passive and active parks, and it's very similar to some of our, like Volunteer Park. I mean, we sat on that property for 10 or 12 years before we actually started construction, things like that. And of course, the operation of the city and the finances, it takes a while. So I'm not looking for anything in the near future, 6 months to a year out. We possibly, maintain it, start some small projects over there and things like that. I don't know budget-wise, again, where we're going to be in this budget process. And I probably answer that question better as we get further into the budget process this year to kind of see where we are and if we're going to do anything over there this coming year, which is FY 2019. So, but it's a good question. I'm one of those guys that likes green space. We've always been in the market for green space and parkland. Supportive of them. I know they took a lot of heat on it, and but sometimes buying property for parkland is never popular. But again, I think it was a good move in that we have some more green space in the city for parkland for the future when we're not here.
All right. Well, thank you, Ms. Lamar. We appreciate what you're doing as an interim, kind of getting everything back in line. Really do appreciate what you're doing. I guess the next thing is round table. Mr. Bowler, do you have anything?
I do. I got just a couple of things. First, I'd like to reiterate your gratitude towards our interim director. Appreciate your service. I know that's more than a part-time thing, right? So thank you. Also, I believe it bears saying that the city shares your values with the parks, and part of the reason that we've got the parks area available to us is because it's sitting in a floodplain. And it's being used at its best, the best use of floodplain land, because you can't put any structures on it, has been making parks out of it, right? And our staff, our city, our leaders are committed to doing that. And so again, I think we share your values. Floodplain land floods, right? And Middle Tennessee is gotten more than our fair share of rain, all right? And I'm a soccer coach, and to have those fields canceled, or the fields closed and practices canceled, I feel your pain, all right? But there's also a real balance between use and maintenance, so that we can continue to use them. And it really, truthfully, left unchecked, the fields would get beat up so that nobody gets to use them, right, until we've got large repairs, large maintenance projects. And then, and I'll stop here in just a second, but while it would seem very simple for us to just move a goal out, again, I'm a soccer guy, I'd love to see more of that. The city's also got a responsibility towards safety for our facilities. And more than a few people have been severely hurt on goals that aren't anchored properly. So I want to say that we hear you, and we also share your values. But also I want to say that the maintenance crew definitely to be commended, and we appreciate all your work and to be able to keep the fields open as much as they are open.
Thank you, Mr. Bowler. Mr. Campbell? Mr. Frank?
Yes, just a few things. First of all, I apologize for being tardy and getting started late, but to borrow Miss Goodwin's, life happens sometimes, so I won't keep us too tardy. I did have two things that I wanted to say is I wear several hats in the community, and for 20-plus years now have appreciated the partnership and reciprocity between the school systems and the Parks Department. We couldn't survive without one another, and I know that at times we always want more gym time and more gym space or more field space, but I think the relationship continues to strengthen. And one example of that, which was not mentioned clearly, but Mr. Jones at the tennis complex has managed to safely and in an organized fashion accommodate 4 high school tennis programs. Which is difficult, and but that's appreciated by the players and the parents and the schools for having that opportunity. So appreciate those minor details, to many not being overlooked and being taken into consideration, and that's why I working with making gyms available and things like that is a little bit more palatable. And I want to say to the general people, the 3 of you that might be watching, that when it comes to just people asking for gym time, we protect our school facilities for our school teams first and our parks second, because just like rolling out a ball on an unchecked piece of land, you just can't have your school building open all day long for anybody just that wants to play pickup basketball. So I want the school parks agreement to continue as much as possible. And also thank you to the actual vision of the board long before I sat on here, the Parks Board, that is, to seek out and attract people that want to use our facilities that not only are for here in Hendersonville, but in other areas that are coming to bring their events here. It's a testimony to making sure those spaces are available, they're well kept, they're accessible, which is not, you can't say that about a lot of parks around the area. They're just not very easy to get to or very welcoming. So appreciate everybody that's had a hand in that.
Thank you, Mr. Franks. Mr. Head?
I'd like to say thanks to Steve, and even saw Keith out on one of the machines this weekend grading the field. So it was amazing. I almost fell over. No, it's just kidding, Keith. Thanks you guys for, if it hadn't been for what we did this weekend, we'd have never got those games in. Actually, I was amazed we played as long as we did. But that being said, being in the parks for a long time, since, I don't know, 25, 30 years now, I don't know. We continue to grow as a city, and the city is trying to keep up with the parks land and development. We have more in teams now than probably ever that I can remember wanting to use Drakes Creek Park, Arrowhead Park. There's not a weekend from basically February now till November that we don't have a tournament or something going on. And with the amount of staff that they have, the Parks Department has, in the city, we pull off some pretty major things. And I just, I think that goes, not even counting the volunteers, because I'm one of those down there every weekend. I put 40 hours in Friday through Sunday and then work. But, it takes a lot of us to do it, and a lot of the groups have come together, worked together, and we pull off some pretty good things down there. And it's a lot of hard work, and I don't think everybody realizes everything that goes in into getting those tournaments in, getting the safety. It's just amazing that we're able to pull off what we pull off weekend after weekend after weekend. I mean, there are, I don't know, average, 10,000 people down there if you've got football going on, softball going on, baseball going on, soccer going on. And we have the police down there making sure nothing happens. If something happens, we have rapid response from our fire department. The Parks Department is in there, overtime, keeping the place clean, fields dragged, fields lined. They do a fabulous job.
Thank you, Mr. Head. Mr. Frost? Okay. I will second some things that Mr. Head is saying. Between the park staff here, Stephen Russell, Mr. Long, Mr. Bruce, Mr. Lamar, and all the volunteers that work in these different events. There's a lot of people in Hendersonville that don't know really how much the volunteers do. And I want to just take time to thank everybody that's involved in these tournaments. It takes a lot, like I said, like Mr. Ed is saying, it takes a lot to put those on and to put them on the right way where people keep coming back. I was fortunate to be involved as a volunteer, so to speak, with the Tweety tournament for 25 plus years. And it takes a lot to put those type tournaments on, any of those events, whether it be soccer, baseball, softball, tennis, any of that. It takes a lot of volunteers to help do that. And I just want to take the time to thank everybody who's involved in that. There again, from the staff to the volunteers to participants, making the park system work that we have in Hendersonville, because we are very fortunate, very fortunate. And I tell you, with that being said, I will take a motion to adjourn. We got Mr. Campbell first, Mr. Head seconded. Signify by saying aye. Aye.